Biden's poll numbers are in the trash, but if you cross the border illegally, you may be eligible for a $450,000 payout, unless of course you choose not to be vaccinated, in which case you'll probably be fired and not eligible for unemployment. Hey guys, my name is Jason Wesley, and this is not a podcast. Now, if you saw episode 40 of Not a Podcast, you saw Biden's dismal numbers, and I had some pushback from that episode. So in this episode, I'm going to let the Democrats and those on the left explain to you what I've been warning and talking about for quite some time. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a Republican. I'm also not a Democrat. I am a constitutional conservative. Here's Chuck Todd with MSNBC.
Good Sunday morning. Happy Halloween. We have a brand new NBC News poll out this morning that's filled with some scary news for the Democrats. The overarching message: Americans have lost their confidence in President Biden and their optimism for the country. At least they have right now. Just 22% of adults say we're headed in the right direction. A shocking 71% say we're on the wrong track. And that includes a near majority of Democrats who are saying that. President Biden's approval rating stands at a dismal 42% versus 54% who disapprove. Believe it or not, just 2 months ago, Mr. Biden was in positive territory, 49% approving, 48% disapproving. So what's pulling down the president's numbers? Well, look at this set of numbers. Just 37% say he has the ability right now to handle a crisis versus nearly a majority who say he does not. 37% also say he's competent and effective as president. 50% disagree with that description. What's more, Republicans, believe it or not, have double-digit leads in dealing with border security, inflation, crime, national security, the economy, and shockingly, on getting things done. Democrats hold generally smaller double-digit leads on dealing with climate change, the coronavirus, education, and abortion. And that's really it right now. But this much is clear. About the only good news for Mr. Biden and the Democrats in this poll is that the midterm elections aren't for another year.
A new poll finds 44% of voters in his party want somebody other than Biden to be the 2024 nominee. Earlier, while overseas, Biden trying to spin his leadership as a success.
If you take a look at what economy is growing, the United States.
Now think about this for a second. In this poll, which party would do a better job? Now, I'm not even going to tackle getting things done in this episode, but Republicans are up 27 points on border security. If you watched episode 11, 26, 36, and 40, you've been updated on what's going on at the southern border. And you've even heard White House press secretary, who now has COVID, even though she's double vaxxed, apparently wears a mask and remains socially distanced, Jen Psaki, call the border wall feckless.
Building a border wall that's feckless and that costs billions of dollars for taxpayers.
Which is why on day one, proclamation of termination of emergency with respect to the southern border of the United States and redirection of funds diverted to border wall construction. Also on day one, Biden suspends deportation, stops Remain in Mexico policy. But then in October, Biden administration plans to restart Trump's Remain in Mexico policy at border in mid-November. Then October 29th, CNN. Biden administration tries again to end Trump-era Remain in Mexico migrant policy. But if you were separated from your family under the Trump administration, have no fear, the Biden administration will give you a check for $450,000 per person. The Wall Street Journal. U.S. in talks to pay hundreds of millions to families separated at border. Government is considering payments of $450,000 per person affected by Trump administration's zero tolerance policy in 2018. The Biden administration is in talks to offer immigrant families who were separated during the Trump administration around $450,000 a person in compensation, according to people familiar with the matter, as several agencies work to resolve lawsuits filed on behalf of parents and children who say the government subjected them to lasting psychological trauma. Now, I'm not going to break down the Flores settlement in this episode or the current immigration laws, but I highly recommend that you check them out for yourself.
Last week, the Wall Street Journal reported that the Department of Justice is negotiating a settlement that would give $450,000 per person to illegal immigrants. For a parent and child, the payout increases to $900,000. To put this in context, if a service member is killed in action, their next of kin receives an insurance payment of $400,000. What this means is that the Biden administration will pay illegal immigrants more than the families of America's fallen heroes. That fact alone is repulsive.
So, if you were a frontline worker or first responder during the height of COVID, you get to lose your job if you don't take the vaccine. But if you illegally come across the border, you won't have to get the vaccine and possibly could get $500,000 from the American tax-paying legal citizen. And speaking of people choosing not to take the vaccine, Ice Cube exits Sony comedy Oh Hell No after declining COVID-19 vaccine.
Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter he departed the project after declining a request from producers to get vaccinated. Sources tell THR the studio is looking to find a replacement for Ice Cube as the star walked away from a $9 million payday.
And at first I thought that's what Cube said. They're like, you want to take this vaccine? He's like, oh hell no, which he probably said that too. Now, Bill Maher had Democrat Senator Bill Coons on his show the other day and spoke about the vaccination and COVID policy.
Come on, the 15 of 100,000. That's where we are at cases in California. 15 cases per 100,000 people. I know some people seem to not want to give up on the wonderful pandemic, but you know what? It's over. There's always going to be a variance. You shouldn't have to wear masks. I haven't had a meeting with my staff since March of 2020. Why? I know the state, the corporate, whoever it is. But really, and also vaccine, mask, pick one. You got to pick. You can't make me mask if I've had the vaccine.
In the United States, in most of the Western world, we're ready to be done with this, but we're not done until the world is safe, and we're not safe as a world until the world's vaccinated.
Except the world recognizes natural immunity. We don't, because everything in this country has to go through the pharmaceutical companies. Natural immunity is the best kind of immunity. We shouldn't fire people who have natural immunity because they don't get the vaccine. We should hire them. Right. Yes?
If someone tests as having antibodies.
Well,
sure.
okay, but people who've had it, I've had it.
Right.
I shouldn't be tested anymore. I had the vaccine.
If someone's willing to be a fireman, if someone's willing to be a policeman, if someone's willing to go into a burning building and says, I'm just not that afraid of COVID and I don't want to take the vaccine, that should be enough. He shouldn't be losing his job. He shouldn't be furloughed without pay. The guy that saves lives because he doesn't want to take a vaccine. It's ridiculous.
For unvaccinated hospitalization risk, unvaccinated, 41% of Democrats thought it was over 50%. Hospitalization rate for the vaccinated is actually 0.01%. And the rate for the unvaccinated is 0.89%. So in both cases, the correct answer is less than 1%. They thought it was over 50. How do people, especially of one party, get such a bad idea? Where did that come from? I mean, you look at the sporting events that all three sports are playing now, including basketball, which is inside. Nobody seems to be having super spreader events. I mean, it was great. It was so much fun having a pandemic. But, bye-bye. Okay.
Now let's go back to the NBC poll. Which party would do a better job? Republicans are up 24 points when it comes to inflation, 22 points when it comes to crime, 21 points when it comes to national security. And speaking of the inept pullout of Afghanistan, Taliban says failure to recognize their government could have global effects. Our message to America: if unrecognition continues, Afghan problems continue. It is the problem of the region and could turn into a problem for the world. Who do you think you are that you can just threaten the United States like that? How has the Taliban been so emboldened to feel so comfortable to threaten the United States and the world? The last person that did that, the only way we identified them was Ring from Corpse identified Iran's top general. But honestly, do you think any nation's afraid of America with this guy at the helm? This is Biden falling asleep at the climate summit before an aide comes and wakes him up.
With his eyes closed, it appears that perhaps he was dozing, and in these settings, cameras are all around, and the camera caught President Biden, who turned 79 later this month, with his eyes closed for a period of time. And you're right, these can be embarrassing situations. You have the contrast of leaders, including President Biden, calling for the urgency of these issues of addressing climate, and a moment like that in a session can be a political obstacle for a moment.
I mean, Democrats lead when it comes to issues like climate change. That's probably why Biden was sleeping during the summit. But here's how out of touch the Democrat Party is with the American people. According to Pew Research Center, in the 2020 election, climate change was at the bottom bottom of the list of concerns. Going into the midterms, according to Long Island University Hornstein Center national poll, Republicans' top issues: number 1, the economy, followed by number 2, national security. The Democrats' top issues: number 1, coronavirus, followed by number 2, economy. So when they're not trying to scare you that the world's going to end in 12 years like AOC alluded to years ago.
I think that the part of it that is generational is that millennials and people and Gen Z and all these folks that come after us are looking up, and we're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change.
Everything is apparently racist. We got to take these motherfuckers out. Rutgers professor calls white people villains.
Despite what white people think of themselves, they do not defy the laws of eternity, right? Their projects are not so sophisticated. I think that white people are committed to being villains in the aggregate. The thing I want to say to you is we got to take these out. But I know, we can't say that, right? We can't say, I don't believe in a project of violence. White people's birth rates are going down. They're the only group whose birth rates are going down in the country. We literally live in a system where even white people cannot sustain the cost of their own lives, right? And by that, I mean the elevated cost of their own lives. It's super perverse. And also, they kind of deserve it.
Get your kids out of colleges and universities. Activists like these aren't teaching your children anything except how to be another Marxist activist. Now, there was an election in Virginia between Terry McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin, and Terry brought in everyone that's ever been in Democrat politics, from Brandon to even Barack Obama, to have his back.
We don't have time to be wasting on these phony, trumped-up culture wars. This fake outrage that right-wing media peddles to juice their ratings.
That's an interesting statement, Barack Obama. Phony, trumped-up culture wars. This fake outrage that right-wing media peddles to juice their ratings. So McAuliffe kept asserting that Youngkin was a racist and aligned with white supremacists, and suddenly people in tiki torches posed outside of one of his rallies.
This was the scene at Guadalajara on East Market Street in Charlottesville. Inside, it looked like a regular campaign appearance. Outside, a painful and tasteless reminder of the August 2017 Unite the Right violence. When we asked if he knew who these people with tiki torches and khakis were, Youngkin said,
I think they work for Terry McAuliffe, and I'm sure he sent them. This is what he does. This is what 43-year politicians do, is when they see their 43-year critical career sunsetting, coming to an end, they'll do anything to win. And he's doing anything to win. And so he's paying people to show up and act silly at our rallies, and the reality is no one's paying attention to him.
McAuliffe's team denied the accusation. They say this was not us or anyone affiliated with our campaign. There is one candidate in this race who has embraced white nationalists, and his name is Glenn Youngkin. The Lincoln Project, which calls itself an American political action committee formed to defeat Trumpism, has since admitted to being behind the incident. It says the demonstration was, quote, our way of reminding Virginians what happened in Charlottesville 4 years ago.
Now, if y'all don't sit y'all's Jussie Smollett asses down, I'm sick of this. And as Barack Obama put it, phony, trumped-up culture wars, this fake outrage. But what's even more hilarious is the Youngkin campaign put together clips of Barack Obama complimenting him as an ad.
Terry's opponent, this is someone who has been very successful. Listen, I want to emphasize this. I'm glad that the guy can play basketball. You know, many of you know, I'm a big hooper. So that's a good thing. The guy can hoop. That's great. I want you to get fired up inside and then go vote.
So McAuliffe said the Youngkin campaign was taking his words out of context, but apparently parents shouldn't be involved in what their kids are taught.
Glenn Youngkin's taking my words out of context.
Something you mentioned in Tuesday's debate is you said you don't believe parents should be telling schools what to teach. What did you mean by that?
Well, first of all, parents should be telling schools that they want their teachers to be vaccinated.
Do you think parents should have a say in the curriculum?
You don't want parents coming in every different school jurisdiction.
You alluded to parents staying out of this. We just want to make sure that we're understanding you correctly. What is your stance on that as far as what school agendas have to say for the kids?
First of all, this is determined by the State Board of Education and local school boards. And that's where it should be.
Do you still stand by your position that parents should not tell the schools what they should teach?
You do not want 25 parents picking books.
McCullough's reply.
We have a Board of Ed and we have local school boards who make the decisions about teaching.
I'm not going to let parents come into schools. I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach.
This whole administration is trash.
Will you be my alibi? Or I could blame it on the